Welcome, loyal listeners. This is the Snapcast, a podcast where we talk about anything that has to do with magic. And today we're on episode 21, man. Episode
Pretty
21.
awesome.
Legal drinking age of episodes. Over
Finally
here.
legal. Let's do it.
That's
All
right, man. We all got brews. And you might have heard the voice of a special guest over here. We have Jason Alt on the podcast today. Round of applause from across the world for this guy.
Woo! Woo!
Yeah, man. Good dude. I'm super happy, man. Yeah, cheers to you. Cheers to you, brother.
Content creator extraordinaire. Now, most of the people that follow our podcast probably know Jason from one of your avenues of creation, but you do so much more.
Yeah.
I really try to just not have a real job.
Hallelujah.
Man, this guy does it all. Like content creator.
That's my goal in life. Like if 10 people could give me $300 a month, then I would be set for life.
That's a really good way to look at it, man. That is a really good way to look at it. And the good thing is about like kind of being a content creator and like having all of these various like things that you do right from your home. It's like you can do that perpetually, like for a very long time. You know
Even
what I mean?
in COVID quarantine.
Exactly. It's pretty solid. So I'm super happy, man. We are both super happy that you joined us on this podcast, man. I can't even tell you. Like sincerest gratitude to you, my friend. And cheers. One more cheers, because we're gonna go probably pretty deep into these things in this podcast.
Let's do it.
We might have to take shifts running to the kitchen.
Dude, so that was one of the things that we said as we were kind of pre-gaming for this cast. Is I was like, Jason Alt is notorious for having a brew on his cast, and I'm like, we're gonna
He's
get
like
along
the
well.
only. That's the only part that keeps the brew in brewing. So let's give Jason a
If
minute.
I don't drink beer, Corbin Hossler would be like, "Oh, building a deck for Mining Modern," and everyone's just like, "All right," they turn off the podcast. We lose patrons every time he puts up.
You know, it's been a while
It's
since
called
you've driven.
8-Whack. It's got 4 goblin bushwhackers. And I was like, oh, and everyone stopped listening. So we're like, okay, we're a brewcast, but now I'm just going to talk about a beer. And Corbin's like, oh, it's Bud Light Lime. So that's the conversation about beer.
So you're drinking out of one of the described handsome Brainstorm Brewery drinking glasses. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. That's a brand thing, whatever.
Yeah,
Whatever.
One of you guys
it's a
might
plug.
make
I like
for me.
it.
Love it, man. So what he's saying is
These are available for our patrons. We like, I don't know. The podcast is called Brainstorm Brewery. It's not a good name. I didn't pick it. I was not consulted. Doesn't make much sense, but you know what? I'm like, if that allows me to drink a beer and then have people get pint glasses for being a patron, like that we can save this a little bit. We can be like, yeah, okay, it's not a great name, but there are some positives.
Yeah,
So
man, your
we
brutal
sent out,
honesty is good.
We said, hey, just because it's my podcast doesn't mean I have to pretend it's a good name. It's not. I was not consulted.
Dude, that is nasty. So Brad had like this ridiculous list of topics that I saw, and I can't. He's been.
Dense. It's like we're going to cast for about a half hour, and why don't you just solve the reserve list real quick?
We have 60 different topics for you to talk about here, dude. So where we starting with this? And by the way, we probably won't ever get to all
Any
of
of
this.
those topics. So here's my first question. So before we started the cast proper, you were talking about the other cast that you do. I know that you do comedy as well. I'm a musician when I'm not doing other things. I haven't had a gig in months. Like, how does it feel not being gigging?
So when I would get up 4 or 5 days a week, I would feel pretty good, right? But I didn't realize how good that felt until I took a week off. Like I took a week off in Vegas, like in 2015. And when I came back, I was like, oh no. My first like 5-6 times up, I felt super loose. I was like, this isn't good. So I was pushing myself to do like 5-6 nights a week because I was like, if I take time off, it's going to get real loose. And I stepped back from doing open mics. Like I was still doing paid gigs. But I wasn't really open micing every night of the week. And when I came back and did an open mic, I was like, oh, this is terrible. It's 3 hours long. You do 5 minutes. You wait around If you're not drinking, it's interminable. And I'm like, every open micer doesn't realize how bad it feels when you don't do it every night to like take time off and then go back. That first open mic back sucks. And that's going to be everyone's experience. Everyone's like, I'm so thirsty for time. We're doing a Zoom open mic. And it's like, all right. But that first one back, you're like, oh no, this sucks. I had no idea.
Dude, one of the things that I noticed.
The first time you do it, you're like, I want to do this every night. And then you never stop. And then if you do stop, I don't know. 3 hours is a long time. And people are about to find that out. So I'm coming at it from a different angle. It's not like, oh, it feels weird for me not to be gigging. I'm like, everybody else is going to realize this is terrible.
Yeah.
That's actually really, really smart. One of the music groups that I work with is saying, hey, let's put together a whole new set so that when we can actually go back out and play music in bars, we're going to be hot. We're going to be tight. We're not going to have lost any steam. So,
yeah. So I now have a question now that you mentioned that like sometimes, there's times going back where it feels kind of like you're dreading it more than anything. I watched a few of your comedy shows, man, like that just happened to find their ways on YouTube. And one of the things that I noticed, which was really cool, is you are super good at like managing the audience and even like hecklers, man. Like you do not get rocked. Like you keep it going. Now, do you have to be on your game for that? Or is that something that's just like comes natural? You're like, I don't care if I'm coming back fresh or not. I'm good at dealing with this shit.
Okay, so it really depends how much time you're doing. I used to get really upset when people heckled. When I was doing like 5 minutes, I'm like, I have 5 minutes up here. I waited 3 hours. You're going to step on my 5 minutes? But the more time you get, like if I'm doing a half hour, I'm like, how am I going to fill half hour? And then someone has a dumb laugh. I'm like, well, let's talk to this guy. I've gotten 10 minutes out of a heckler before.
Man, I'm telling you.
Like, I said a rhetorical question and some woman in the audience like answered my rhetorical question. I was like, well, let's talk to her. And when you talk to hecklers, they realize that like, oh, the comedian's going to get me. So what they do is they shut down and they answer you with like 1 or 2 word answers. Because they're like, I don't want to open myself up. But what they don't realize is when they give 1 or 2 word answers, you can twist what they're saying. And you're like, oh, so you mean this. You fill in the context. And then they get more embarrassed. They laugh more. So like, if you're not mean about it, it can be a lot of fun where just like someone calls attention to themselves. And then you're like, oh, well, this. And then you kind of spend a lot of time on them. And then you do more material, and then you can come back to them. You can relate it to them. Like if you watch people that do good crowd work, you notice that they name an audience member. They'll like just give them a tag. It's like, oh, that's the Amish guy or whatever. So they'll come back. They're like, something about a car. Amish guy wouldn't know about that. And then everyone laughs just because you reminded them of him earlier. Like doing crowd work is so easy once you know like how to do it. So I think I kind of the longer I'm doing, the more I welcome somebody saying something. Like if I'm like really engrossed in a bit and it throws me off, that's fine. But like sometimes I don't even want to go back to it. I'm just like, whatever, that was the thing I was doing, but now this happened and this is more fun. It's sort of like why people like improv, even though improv is just sort of like whatever, I think stand-up is a lot harder than improv. I think improv looks more impressive. So anytime you could be like, here's a thing that's happening just tonight, this wasn't rehearsed, people feel like they're part of it and they really dig that. So I think like anytime you can make it be like, oh, this is the thing that's just happening right now, and everyone is in the room gets to later on say, I was there for that.
Oh, for sure,
I think
man.
That's good. So like, if someone says something during my set, like some people are just like trying to shut you down, but some people are just like, they have a weird laugh or they, answer a rhetorical question or whatever. And then it's like, all right, so you made a noise that wasn't clapping.
Right.
I'm on you now.
Yeah. It's kind of good too. Cause you kind of like, you take control of the people that are probably the biggest problem to your show. You know what I mean? And you're kind of using that to your advantage, man. Like that is solid right there.
It
but
really
also
depends. If someone's being a jerk, like you can always have security kick them out. So like they're always there at your disposal is how I feel about it. So like once I realized like if someone's being a problem, nobody else wants them there, you can kick them out. Then it just sort of becomes like, we will have as much fun with this person as long as they are having fun and not trying to harm the show.
Right.
So when you look at it that way, you're like, okay, this is all upside. It's just free material, I think.
Yeah, for sure, man. And I think that sort of like ability to deal with those random situations that you might find yourself in and like make humor out of it really brings a lot of value to a lot of the stuff you do, man. Like a lot of the content you create.
Well, that's like a Magic game. I talk about that as far as improvisation, like having the skill to adapt to the circumstances you find yourself in is a performer trait. And I really think like, not to take us off track and talk about Magic, but
what is this? We don't talk about Magic on
no,
this podcast.
Honestly, I don't care. But I do think that there's something to that. Like when you're comfortable with your skill set and your deck as to continue the metaphor, when you're comfortable with it and you know what you can do, what it can do, you find yourself in a circumstance that you've never played before, and the guy in front of you plays 2 Platinum Angels and some ridiculous enchantment that you've never seen that gives them protection from all colors.
I feel like you're salty about a certain game that happened to you.
I won that game.
Very specific. Just give it for instance.
Yeah, right. I mean, I'm just making up a scenario
let's
here.
Call it Brandon. Plays 2 Platinum Angels. Like, this is EDH, Brandon. That's one too many. I'm cutting your deck next time.
Phantasmal Image makes a good Platinum Angel.
Oh man, that's so dope. So we were,
what was it Mike Tyson said? Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face.
Oh, yep, it's true though, man. It's really true.
Here's my flavor text from Tempest that's very similar to that, like some counter spell. Everyone has a plan until their spell gets countered or something. I don't know. I don't know.
He's working to get back in the game.
Yeah, did you see that, man? Mike Tyson is coming back in the game.
I mean, he's a little older, but like he's still Mike Tyson,
right? Dude, he has this video
when he was 19. I don't think I'd be like, he's 35 now. I'm not worried about Mike Tyson. Of course you're worried about Mike Tyson, you idiot.
He's 53, and I wouldn't want to insult him.
50.
Yeah,
I have number dyslexia for just boxers. Like, Pacquiao, I think he still got it.
Yeah, man. Oh, for sure. Like he looks pretty prime right now. Like that video we saw online earlier is just stupid.
I don't think anyone's gonna be like, "Oh, he's 53. Well, I'll let him get a free shot in first." Then I'm knocking you out in 7 seconds. He hit that dude so hard he got a pizza hut commercial. Remember he knocked that white dude out in like '94, and he did the stuffed crust pizza commercial where he flipped the pizza around and it like pretended the pizza knocked him out. Like Mike hit him so hard he got an endorsement for getting punched. Like that as a boxer, anyone could get themselves an endorsement deal. Like most people don't punch a dude hard enough to make them money.
Yeah, that's solid. That is solid, man. Very good point. But yeah. So speaking of, I hate to really redirect us to Magic, man, because I feel like we could talk about.
I mean, it's nominally a Magic cast. If you feel like that's what you do, I will. If you don't think I could get us back off track if I feel like it,
no, please do. I think this is like brings the most value. Yeah. Honestly, like this could be the theme of this. Let's try to talk about Magic and see where it goes. Dude,
after hours.
But yeah, like some of the things, when you're tuning into like the podcast that you guys do is it's so entertaining to just watch like you talk to other people, not only just on the podcast, but about certain topics and bring like this whole, sort of humorous, but very well-informed view of things. Like,
yeah, where conversely, we are terribly underinformed and not humorous.
Well, at least
one of
us is.
Yeah. I figured that was coming.
But yeah, so I watched a recent podcast of you guys that you were talking about. You kind of had a starkly different, feeling on a certain mechanic, man. And I have a question for you about the companion mechanic. All right. I watched a cast where you're kind of talking about not really liking it. And I'm wondering if your opinion has changed the more that decks have kind of come into being with, experimenting with companions, seeing how they pan out. Has your opinion changed on it at all? Or are you still kind of starkly against it?
Some of them are very good. Some of them are very bad, but the whole let's make every format like EDH is a bad impulse. As soon as they announced this is going to be the year of Commander. My butthole puckered. And I was like, because once you realize Commander is the best format because it's the only one they don't actively mess with, like, I don't think they realize that.
Right.
Like, Commander is the best format because we get good stuff accidentally.
Right. And
you know?
also they also have a independent source sort of regulating the ban list on it and, you know, making a lot of the rules that are associated with it. So, I mean, yeah, that's kind of a good point.
So, like, when they're like, oh, what if everything felt more like EDH? What if we made Arcane Signet and, like, ruined about 20 mana rocks forever so we could push Brawl? And what if you had a commander in Legacy? Everyone's like, well, everyone's going to. Why would you not?
Right.
If every Legacy deck qualifies for Loris and all you have to do is have black mana, which you already had because it's Legacy.
Yep. Oh, it's like all your cards have to be 2 mana or less. That's fine. Like, we don't run any creatures or we don't run any permanent cards anyway. This Storm deck of mine, basically. Like, you know what I mean? That's, I mean, come on.
Oh, I get 4 to 6 extra life a game, is what you're saying? Cool. Like, Magic's fun.
Oh, man.
Like, I like Yorion and, you know, like big dumb stuff like that. You know, I like the what's the guy that everything in your deck has to be even and you can take their cards when you hit them. Like, that's, I don't know the names of cards. I'm real bad about that.
I'm the same way.
Fit right in.
You're fitting right in with this, man. The drinking.
I like that kind of stuff, but at the same time, it's like, just leave EDH alone.
Right.
They haven't even done Commander Masters yet. That new box of horrors that they're going to unleash on us, like, that's it's like, man. Oh, we forgot to print Bloom Tender, but don't worry, we printed
it was
for the 45th time, and now it's 11 cents. Hey, you wanted Black Market again, right?
Oh, yeah, man. Like, I don't know. When I first heard that cast, I was probably in I should say a slightly different spot with Companion. I felt like, you know, in fact, I think I said this on our first podcast when we first talked about this mechanic that was coming out. I said Wizards needs to do one of two things. They need to print more companions, like keep printing companions, or kill it right now. You know what I mean? And just say, yep, this was a bad idea. Like, we shouldn't have done this. Like, how would you feel if they kept printing companions and, like, we weren't just restricted to the, what, like 5 or 6, 10 that we have right now?
I don't want... If it's going to be the next Planeswalker, I think that's, I don't know. I don't think that's why people started playing Magic, to always have access to something. It's just another thing for them to screw up. Like, if they forgot that Felidar Guardian and Saheeli interacted like that when they were both in Standard at the same time, do you really trust them to, like, anticipate every possible problem that arises from having companions, which are just always accessible?
Right.
Like, if you print a problem companion, that's every game.
Yeah.
If you print Saheeli Felidar Guardian, that's not every game. So, like, the companions are worse because you always have access to them. And yeah, it restricts your deck building a little, unless you print, like, a Lightning Otter that's like, you have to have an EDH deck to play this in your EDH deck. Like, okay, man, I've got one of every non-land. That's how EDH works.
Right.
So basically, you just created a $35 tax on everyone playing Izzet colors?
Yeah, it's really weird. Did you see Saffron Olive's video where he, like, compared the companion mechanic to some of the most toxic and terrible mechanics of all Magic history? Like, that was an eye-opener, man. He made a comparison to Phyrexian Mana, where, like, it switches the game up so much.
Anytime they've printed free spells, it's been a mistake, and they have refused to learn that. Whether it's Phyrexian Mana or it's Affinity or it's, you know,
all the cards in the new EDH
like
decks.
even the ones from, like, Kamigawa block. It's like they've had to ban shoals.
Yeah.
Like, free spells are always a mistake.
Like, as soon as Modern came out, the Blazing Shoal got the ban. Like, there was this stupid deck that could theoretically, it didn't happen often.
Turn 1.
Yeah, turn 1 could theoretically win turn 1. It was stupid.
The Hasty Goblin from the guys, like, if it's in your hand, you get a Hasty Goblin.
Yeah, the Chancellors, one of the Chancellors, whatever his name was. Yeah. Yep.
See, we didn't talk about our history or whatever, I only started playing Magic in like Return to Ravnica.
You're a baby.
I know, in the grand scheme of things, even when you're like, that's actually what, 8 years ago, or
Oh yeah,
that's when we started Brainstorm Brewery when Avacyn Restored came out.
Yeah. So
yeah,
just about
so
the
you've
same
been
length.
playing Magic as long as I've been just podcasting. I started playing in '96.
no kidding, man. Yeah, that's
Ice Age.
Ice Age. So to date myself a bit, I still remember cracking a Gaia's Cradle, which I still have from an Urza Saga pack when they were on the shelves. I still got it. It was one of those cards you crack it and you're like, this card is insane. Like, I'm never trading this to anyone. I don't care how persuasive they are. This card is so good. Like, and I've just held on to it in my collection.
$20 someday.
Yeah.
I better hang on to this. $20.
Right?
MTG Finance Gurus.
Yep, exactly,
I paid
man.
$20 for a Balduvian Horde back in the day, and that's what made me want to get into finance.
Oh.
Just watching that price graph.
Yeah, man, right? Like, that's, especially with, there's so much stuff, man. Like, we do this thing typically on every episode where we try to pick, we call it the segment Snap This Up, where, you know, hey, it goes right along with the name of our cast, right? Like the Snapcast.
Branding.
Yep. We're trying to brand. We're trying to do some good things, right? And dude, I'm notorious for picking cards that are on the reserve list, man.
It's just like you just wrote an article recently about, you know, all these stellar MTG Finance guys that say just buy a reserve list.
It's sort of lazy, yeah.
Yeah,
it is.
But hey, I don't know, man. But to the uninitiated, if you're doing a segment, it looks like you're doing a magic trick for a dog. They're like, "Whoa, where'd that ball come from?" So.
I mean, it's a
Cyrus. What if wheels were good? And then everyone's like,
oh,
"Wheel
I don't
fortune
want.
went up. You called it."
I don't want. That's one of those cards that every time I look at it, I don't want to pay the price, and then I regret it. I've played
Right.
Nekusar as my single EDH deck for 4 years and never bought a wheel.
Well, never bought a Wheel of Fortune or never bought a wheel.
Never bought a Wheel of Fortune. Yeah.
I got no wheels. Like windfall, whatever, cheater.
Yeah.
This is a prosperity psychosis crawler deck only.
Hey, it was a sad day when I took Psychosis Crawler out of my deck.
Oh
You know how
man.
many times I've made money on Teferi's Puzzle Box? I was pulling those out of dollar bins back at like GP Montreal 2014. It's like, I'm a finance guru. And I never realized how many times I could go up and then I would sell them. And then those same people would sell them back to me for a third of the price a year later. And then I was like, I got a feeling I'm going to make more money on Teferi's Puzzle Box later. And then,
Bam.
oh, Locust God. Oh, Xyrus.
Oh.
I was, well, you know, I'm a sucker for shinies. I was happy to when everybody cracked their mystery booster packs over at our LGS, somebody opened a foil puzzle box, and I was like, Nekusar likes that. I bet it's cheap right now. Give me.
Yeah. So yes, maybe I do fall into that lazy sort of category over there with.
Yeah, but it's lazy if you're writing articles telling people how to buy specs. But like, if you're just a person trying to not pay too much later, like, be lazy. Who cares, man?
Well,
Like-
I'm also curious though, like, because we actually recently in our 20th episode we did this sort of like recap of all of the cards that we had picked and been like, hey,
How'd we do?
Yeah, how did we do? And like kind of ran some stats on them. And it was like, you know, it was pretty hit or miss. I think our hit rate percent we calculated to be 54%, which is, I say, decent.
Which is better than coin flipping.
Exactly. It's just slightly better than coin flipping, you know, but a lot of the stuff was like, you know, a lot of the big hits were like on the reserve list. And I'm like, okay, so how do we, like, I guess I'm curious as to how you pick cards that you would invest in or that you might take a risk on that aren't on the reserve list. Like, what are the things you look for?
Okay, so I changed my technique a lot. I used to pay attention to what was going on in Standard, Modern, Legacy. Once I got clued into the fact that EDH drives the most prices, because how many cards are good in Legacy? 100 cards, maybe?
Right.
Like, how many cards are good in Standard at times? 50? 9,000 cards are good in EDH because everything's got a deck that it goes in and it does a very specific thing. EDH is driving the most. It doesn't drive prices the most, but it drives the most prices.
Right. I used to kind of fall
So,
into
like,
that pattern
there
too.
are more than yeah, there were more than 200 cards total worth money because of EDH. If there were no EDH, it would just be like
nobody's playing Mana Tithe elsewhere.
Right?
Yeah.
But also, I mean, Legacy doesn't really drive the price of Magic cards either, because it's like, who is playing Legacy these days? This is coming from someone, I've been a big fan of Legacy and Vintage. I mean, I used to play Vintage decks, like, or Vintage tournaments with the most jank, ridiculous decks and do semi-well. Like, I have a special place in my heart for, like, Vintage and Legacy. But to be completely honest, man, they are not driving card prices at all. Like, they're
driving Japanese foil prices, right? Like,
right.
I don't even think they're doing that now.
They want to blame the reserved list for that, but like Star City was running tournaments, now they're not. Like,
yeah, it really all depends on where you have a venue.
Didn't make Star City not, because Star City has all the dual lands. Like, they liked selling dual. I'm not sure why they stopped doing it, but especially if you're doing a classic. And especially if that classic is at an SCG Open. Like, there's no reason not to do Legacy Sunday or something like that. So, right. I don't know why they made the decision. They made the decision. But, like, they were the ones doing Legacy. Like, Wizards stopped at SCGs. Like, we will carry the torch for 3 years, right? It's just that Legacy is just a format that it's just sort of like, it's a problem. It's going to be hard to play. And people will love to blame dual lands for that. But, like, it's really just a matter of nobody's running the events. And when they do run the events, they're popular because people are like, oh, I have a Legacy deck. I'd love to play it. But the format's not evolving like it used to, which is really sad, because it used to be every new set impacted Legacy, you know?
Right.
Every new, like, Commander set had a Legacy card in it. Like, remember True Name Nemesis? Like,
oh, man, huge bomb.
Changed the face of Legacy forever. Now it's like, it doesn't even really matter, which is, it's sad.
Yeah.
But I mean, I just pay attention to what's going on in EDH, and still, people who don't understand EDH don't do well at EDH speccing. They think they do. They'll get the obvious stuff. Like when Xyris comes out, everyone's like, wheels, but like no one's buying Cryptolith right. You know?
Well,
no one's getting the stuff where if you actually build the deck you will need.
Yes.
You know, no one's getting the puzzle boxes. So they're like, I used my COVID bucks to buy Wheel of Fortune, and the fact that everybody is closed down because of the virus, and like there are 7 people selling Wheel of Fortune on TCG Player where there were 350 last month.
Yep.
I bought all 7 copies with my COVID bucks, and now like I'm a full-time speculator. Everyone's like, Wheel of Fortune is $395 now in the reserve. No D. Reserve list. It's sort of like, yeah, you can get those cards if you don't understand EDH, but like if you don't understand EDH, you're gonna be like, I think, okay, so I put everything in terms of Vanifar and Teysa. Like when I write articles, like these are the examples I use now, because everyone's like, Vanifar, that's the CEDH card. CEDH is really having a moment right now, and like Intruder Alarm went to like $40 or something.
Yeah, that was ridiculous.
And, like, remember the Thornbite staff went to like $20 and like foil cards that like untap stuff like Bounding Krasis and the Oak, the whatever, the like 7 mana Oak that untapped all your creatures and gave them 2/2. They're like, all these they're $1 million now because of Vanifar. And then like if you look, Vanifar is like the 7th most built commander from that set on EDH right now. Like,
oh, for sure.
It's below Nikia, which doesn't let you play non-creature spells. Like Vanifar is all the way down. And as much as people want to like pretend competitive EDH is more of a thing than it is, it was really just a case of like everything from Vanifar was obvious and everything from Nikia was not obvious. So everyone's like, buy Intruder Alarm, and I'm just over here. I'm like, hey, this you know, Vindictive Lich is really good in Teysa, and I just bought a ton of Vindictive Liches, and I made way more money. Even the people that like bought foil Bounding Krasis for $1 and it went to like 30, they didn't get 30.
Right.
They got $1.
They didn't turn around.
Out of that, trying to sell them on TCG Player.
Yeah, exactly.
So like, I just, for the actual organic EDH stuff, it moves much slower.
Oh, for
the
sure.
People
man.
that like, and it's like there's the speculating community, but then there's every player who sees a thing and they're like, oh, I need my 4 copies. So if a player notices a thing, they buy their 4 copies, they're happy. But if they are too slow and another player buys their 4 copies, and then that player can't buy their 4 copies, it's the speculator's got my copies. Why can't you just play the stock market? Magic's not a stock market; it's a card game. And it was just another dude buying 4 copies for a deck he's never going to build, just like you were going.
Guilty.
Guilty. A millisecond sooner. Like,
yeah.
Like the 3rd time the Food Chain Griffins deck got on camera in Legacy, I was like, this is stupid. This is not a deck. And everyone's like, but it got on camera. I was like, there were 97 people playing a Classic and it top 8'd. So he won 5 rounds?
Right.
And, like, and Food Chain went to like $70. And
that used to be a $5 card. That used to be a $5 card, man.
I bought so many Food Chains when they spoiled Mist Hologriffin. I was like, yep, Food Chain.
Yep.
That's what I used to do. I used to like, well, they're putting, and I went to my LGS. I was going online. I was sniping eBay auctions. I was using a bot to snipe eBay auctions.
What?
Like, I was doing that kind of junk. And it was so stressful. And then I got all the Food Chains and I sold them for 15. I was like, I'm a genius. You know?
You're one of those guys that I get pissed off at. They snipe my eBay auction with literally 1 second left. I'm like, how did you humanly do that? Like, what?
But Vanifar stuff gets all the bad press. All the Vanifar spikes are like, the speculators are doing this. The speculators are buying Tesa stuff. I bought Black Market. I bought Grave Pact. I bought Vindictive Lich. I bought Hallowed Spirit Keeper. I bought all that kind of junk, and it all just went up to 4 times what it was before and stayed there. All the stuff from Vanifar went up to 10 times what it was before and then went to 2.5 times what it was before. Like, it went way up and then came way back down because, like, are you selling to other speculators? Like, no one's actually buying foil Bounding Crassus for $30 because no one's actually booking the deck because it sucks. So Vanifar is like the 7th most built. Like, more people are building Lavinia than Vanifar, but Vanifar was like, the speculators bought all the Bounding Crassuses before I could buy them.
Yeah.
And I was buying stuff. So, like, that's my philosophy now, is just be the Tesa guy. Just like, hey, Vindictive Lich is real good in Tesa. And you have a lot of time. You have months, you know? Like right now, no one is putting Commander 2020 decks into Archidect or Moxfield or Deck Stats or any of the sites that EDHREX scrapes. Xyrus is the number 13 commander right now, despite being super hot. Like what's the other one? The X spell one?
Golos?
What? No.
Or no?
He's talking about the new decks.
They all have the same. Every commander has the same name, basically, with a few letters off. Like, yeah, Robert Jordan named all these characters. It's like a wheel of time. Like, no, it's Nifia, not Vanafia, you idiot. Like,
dude, I'm pumped that you brought up that you're talking about EDHREC, man. This is something that Brad had actually brought up on episode 8 of our podcast, and it was, you know, live right there, like the first time I'd ever heard of it, and we checked it out live, and I'm like, this site is sick, man. Like, and you're a content manager for that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So here's
I hired every writer. Basically, that's what I guess content management. Like, I hired every writer. I sort of every time somebody wants to write for the site, like every time a writer's got a question, like I just sort of manage all of that aspect of it. And yeah, I'm getting more and more responsibility these days, which is good. You know, the owner of the site is sort of you know, shifting his sites elsewhere, so I'm getting a bigger role in deciding what EDHREC does. But like, what EDHREC does right now is it just tells people what other people are doing. We don't editorialize. The data is the data.
So that's really cool. There's
so
this
it's
awesome
a recommendation, but it's just like why is everybody playing Teferi's Puzzle Box and Ekasar? Oh, well, you look at Puzzle Box, you're like, oh, that's why.
Yeah.
It's not like, hey, I'm a writer and I'm an EDH expert. I've been doing this for years and I think Vanifar is going to be the best deck. It's not. It's sort of like, well, Vanifar is the 7th best deck just on the basis of what everyone's actually building. So I kind of like that we're not called upon to guess what's going to happen.
Just reporting the news.
Sort of like, yeah, we're just reporting it. And like, we have we have writers to be like, well, this is maybe too high, or ooh, this should be higher, or here's how you use the site to build this deck. That's why we have writers, just to sort of contextualize the data. But if you just don't even look at that part of the site and just go to edhrec.com/nothing and just do some wrecking, you're going to get some data just on the basis of what other people have said they're doing.
That's
how it came up organically in our conversation. So Mike is like a savant with MTG. When I asked him, hey, you want to do a podcast talking about MTG, he doesn't listen to anybody else. He doesn't listen to other podcasts. He doesn't watch other content.
Look, don't throw me under the bus like that. I honestly, listened to Jason's. All right, I did.
You didn't know who you were till last week, Jason.
That's right. But
so that's true. But that's why I love your perspective. So when we were talking about Guardian Project, and he was like, "Well, why is this a better card than what's the creature, the same cost?"
Yeah.
The Sage or whatever.
We're all bad at
you play a creature,
Magic
you draw a card.
Yeah,
6/3 for 17 mana or whatever. Yeah.
No, it's the same mana cost. It is 4 mana, but like I had originally brought up, I'm like, why is this better? Like, is
you're talking the one from Future Sight?
No, this is a recent one.
Yeah, one of the recent ones. It's basically like it's a 4/5 creature, I think, or 4/4 maybe, and it just says like whenever a creature comes into play under your control, you draw a card, and it's 4 mana. And I was like, so wait, why spec on this Guardian project when there's other replacements out there? And literally his answer was like, well, just look at what people are playing.
So I brought up EDHREC, and I'm like, look, this is the number of decks that this is being played in.
That was insane.
And Guardian Project is, what I like to do is I like to put it relative to other cards in the set. I like to sort by sets, and everyone sort of like in the finance subreddit was like, why are you comparing to other cards in the set? That you should compare it to other cards that do the same effect. But if you look at a card that's overperforming relative to the other stuff in the set, that means other stuff that is this new is getting played less because it's less popular. Like everyone has had the same amount of time. Everyone's had, 12 months, 15 months? Yeah, everyone's had like 15 months to get a Guardian Project, and more people are putting Guardian Project in their deck over that course of that 15 months than are something else from that set. Like,
that's a good point, whatever. Man. It's just raw data. That's what I really like about this.
So Mike works with data professionally.
Yeah, like this is what I do for a living, is just like run data all the time, and it's like, you can have some theory in your head or whatnot, but it doesn't matter. Like it's whatever the data says. So that's why I was just a big fan of the site, man. There's some really cool facets about this site. Like as soon as you go on, you get this like pop up of like the commander of the day or whatnot. I was curious, how does that get picked? Like, is it randomly?
Just a randomizer?
Is it like a random out of like people that are actually using
all of them? No, it doesn't matter.
Yep. Any legendary creature?
Any legendary creature. If it's someone built 3 decks total ever, Alexi Zephyr Mage, there you go.
Yep. Okay. So it's more of like to draw attention to potentially commanders that people aren't using.
Because like people ask for that.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, if they want to see a thing they've never seen before. And so, like, a randomizer is the best way to do it.
And they can't afford to fly to Vegas, so this is the next best thing.
Well, I mean, it's kind of true, though. Like, if you don't, it's with all of the information we have out there, it's almost impossible sometimes to be like, to pick the commander that you might philosophize in your head, if that's even a word. Like, to have a commander brought to your attention that you might not have ever heard about, I wouldn't be surprised if, like, one of these things pops up on, like, the random commander of the day. And then suddenly people are making decks.
Pops up, and I don't want to build a Nekasar deck, but I do want to build a Xyrus deck. And then I look at Nekasar, I'm like, oh man, Windfall? Windfall is messed up. Wait, if I have 11 cards in my hand, everyone draws 11?
Yeah, that's solid.
And that's like an obvious thing everybody knows. But like, imagine it's something like Multani, and you're like, oh, people are playing Multani, and that helps my Joel Rail Emperor Beast deck. I don't know. Look, man, I don't know what kind of lunatic gets
whatever your kink
by the random
is.
Commander, but like every amount of data we can present to people in some different way, we're going to give them a bunch of different chances to get turned on to it. And I think some people wonder, sort of like a chicken egg thing, is like, did I start shilling super hard for EDHREC after they hired me? And it's actually, I was writing about MTG Finance using EDH rec data for 2 years before Don contacted me. So he was just seeing pingbacks on all of my articles. I was like, oh, here's EDH rec, use the data, blah, blah, blah. And he's sort of like, hey, I've been noticing that you're using our site. I really appreciate you putting the good word out there. And I was like, oh, well, you guys should have articles. And he's like, what? I was like, yeah, you should definitely have people writing articles, contextualizing the data. And that's how I got hired doing that. So
That's
it was
awesome.
It was more of a like, I was using the site for finance before anybody else was, just because I was like, what people are actually doing is more interesting than what people say they're going to. Because people say they're going to build Vanifar, but they actually built Tesa.
Right. I say I'm going to rake my lawn, but instead I played a terrible black-white enchantments deck on Arena today.
Dude, so one of the coolest things.
No.
Doom Foretold?
No.
Well, there's your mistake.
Oh, dude! So one of
Beast
the coolest...
Whisperer, by the way, I pulled a Corbin. I was over here typing on the computer while you talked.
Yeah, he's figuring
Beast
it out.
Beast Whisperer. So why Guardian Project over Beast Whisperer?
Yeah.
Oh, the 2/3 just from their most recent set. I was thinking like that card from like Avacyn Restored or whatever, that giant.
No,
I already have my answer, dude. Ready? It just goes back to the classic: dies to bolt. Right.
But enchantments they just, for whatever reason, legacy players are like, an effect on a stick is better because you can swing for 2. And it's like, I've killed somebody with Dark Confidant. I'm like, not in EDH. You're going to get blasphemous acted out of the game. And you're going to be there with your asceticism and you're like, well, I'm sure glad I have my lurking predators right now. But like, there's so many creature wipes in EDH, and like, you only get all your enchantments wiped if you're playing against Sheldon Menery.
Right, yeah. It's just weird shit like that, man. That's crazy.
That's just, it happened to me. I was playing on Olivia Gobert-Hicks stream, and Sheldon Menery's like, here's Ore Thief. I'm like, I have 11 enchantments in play.
What?
And nothing but lands. And he's like, I always main deck Ore Thief.
Oh my god, that's ridiculous.
I was like,
and you're in charge of this ban list, you bastard?
Anybody.
Dude,
this guy's main decking my Achilles heel because he's been playing this format longer than I've been alive.
Jesus,
I get it,
man. Dude, so one of the coolest things about EDH Rack that I really appreciate about the site is that it brings a whole different context to how people are looking at commander decks. Like I'm kind of I'm a simple man. All right, Jason, like I used to go on MTG Top 8 and look at commander decks. But the big difference, there's a huge difference there because you have on MTG Top 8, it's dual commander decks. It's a different rule set that they're playing with. Yeah. It's a different ban list that they're playing with, and it doesn't really give you a good insight of what people are actually playing on like tabletop Magic. Like,
Soul Ring must be trash because the MTG Top 8 doesn't have it in a single list.
Mana Vault must be trash, man. Like people aren't playing this. Of course, it's it's banned in Dual Commander. So I mean, it brings to question though. Like, how do you feel about Dual Commander in general? Like, do you?
I don't think it's a thing.
No kidding.
I love you, Jason.
In the context of like EDH overall, like I just don't. Maybe it's sort of like I can't quantify it, so I'm going to ignore it. But like, for my purposes as a financier, why not ignore it? Because if I miss stuff, that's fine. Some people are like, oh, you're a financier and you didn't see this coming. But it's like, who cares what I missed? Because my method gets so much that like, you just make money on the stuff I get. Like the stuff I missed is not missed money if I apportion my money effectively and just like buy other stuff.
Right.
So like not calling a card going up is so like, maybe I'm supposed to be embarrassed by that. And when like I first started out podcasting, like we missed this.
No.
But then it's like, yeah, but I gave you 10 good bits of information and they all made money.
Right.
And you, even if you would have made more money doing that other thing, you didn't lose money not doing it.
Right.
Except virtually.
You're not going to get them all.
But the point is like, I don't pay attention to what I don't understand because like, my hit rate's not going to be good doing that. Like if you ask me questions about French, I could probably somewhat kind of maybe half-assed answer them. But why would I, on an article where people are paying money to read it early, say anything about French EDH where it's just like, just do the thing I'm saying to do because that's how I know you're going to make money.
Right.
So like, I'm going to miss stuff about French, but like What if everybody played French and I'm just like, it's not a thing. Who cares? If it's 11 people or if it's everybody but me, it still doesn't matter. I don't care. It doesn't exist to me because it's like Sherlock Holmes not knowing how many planets are in the solar system, sort of a deal. It's sort of like, you're a genius. How do you not know how many? He's like, I don't care. It doesn't help solve murders, idiot. So like,
yeah, it seems really
French EDH doesn't help me solve murders, so I ignore it. And maybe French EDH players like, Sacre la bleu, you must get him, but like.
Dude, but it also seems really inconsistent too. Like with MTG Top 8 and the cards that are in those decks are very inconsistent, especially sometimes even with the ban list on French Dual Commander. Like,
and that's not MTG Top 8's fault. They're just reporting the news,
right?
And sometimes the news is like, I don't know, I put a Soul Ring in my deck. What are you going to do about it?
It goes back to kind of exactly what you were saying. I think that there's possibly a lot of people out there that don't fully understand the French Dual Commander because it's really just, it might not necessarily be a thing. So if someone shows up to some, Dual Commander tournament with, a falling star in their deck, which I fully spec'd on when it was $3 because I saw it in some Dual Commander deck on MTG Top 8. And, it ended up not being a bad idea, because it went up to like $50, but like at the same time, the only reason I invested in it is because I had this, some amount of data from, MTG Top 8. And I was like, oh, well, this has got to be good. This is got to be great. But come to find out, it's actually banned in French Dual Commander. So it was just super weird, but it also just made me really appreciate like the EDH rec because
the French word for dexterity sounds like a racial slur, so they don't want to.
We got to look this up now, Brad. So Brad went for a refill over here by the looks. You just missed this up. You missed this important fact. You got to look this up while we're going here. The French word for dexterity. I would have probably
it sounds like a racial slur, and that's why Falling Star is banned in French ADH.
Oh, okay, perfect. So let's not say it.
Don't look it up. The mystery is more important than fact checking.
We challenge our listeners. Go check out the French interpretation of the word dexterity. Yeah, man. Like that's
what was the Lich card that you were talking about a minute ago? I thought you were saying a dirty word.
Oh my god.
Been bootive.
Oh, yeah, man. But I just really love that EDH rec site, man. And especially now knowing that you're a content manager for this, and like I personally really respect your opinion on a lot of the specs that you call out, and the way that you look at investing in Magic. Like we're using this. We look at this, man. Like it's just a.
Want to know the best finance advice I ever gave anybody?
Yes.
I tell people, if you are interested in a card, buy twice as many.
Yeah.
Yep. Good point. That's a really good point.
I said that on the Command Zone like 6 years ago, and people are still like, "Oh my god!"
If
you were interested in a card,
somebody else
are other people are too. And like, if the card doubles and you have 2 copies, your copy was free. You got a free Magic card.
Exactly.
If it doubles up and you sell the extra one, you get a free Magic card. If you build a second deck, you don't have to buy another copy at its current $10 because you bought 2 for $10. You got a free Magic card. Any way you look at it, if the card goes up, you got a free Magic card. And it's probably going to go up because if you're interested in it, EDH is one of those formats where like, oh, it turns out everybody wanted Anointed Procession. Who knew? So just double your order.
Yeah, for sure.
And you're going to end up way happier because what are the odds you're the only person that thinks like Grave Pact is good in Teysa, right? Like it's low.
Right.
The better a card is, the more people are going to be turned on to it and the more you should buy just on the basis of like, yeah, this is what everyone's doing. If you have EDH rec data, it's like, well, there's an 87% inclusion rate of Grave Pact on Teysa. That was a good idea.
Right.
It's good to have that data, but like even just looking at a card, if you're like, you know what, this makes me want to brew with this, just buy twice as many. So for all the people out there like, this isn't a stock market, it's boo. You know what? Just double your stupid order, and then you got free cards, and that's the finance advice I give out. As much as everyone wants to paint everybody in the finance community as Rudy, like we're not.
Yeah.
Like, Brainstorm Brewery is just like, don't be an idiot. Buy at the right time, sell at the right time. Don't dump your binder at rotation. Pick up stuff at rotation.
Right.
Don't
we talk
pick up
about that all the time.
Don't pick up everything when a new set comes out. Dump when a new set comes. Just do what the opposite of what everyone else is doing, and then you'll make money, or you will spend less money, which is making money.
Oh, absolutely.
Because you're going to buy that stuff eventually anyway. So if you just get it at a better price.
It's really good, man. Like, we kind of talk about speccing and stuff like that, but it seems like some of the best specs between you and I that we've ever made has been stuff that you're like,
I'm into.
I want to get this for Nekusar, or I'm like, hey man, there's a legacy tournament coming up in Massachusetts that I'm going to go to. I need these cards. Like, you know what I mean?
If you need them, probably somebody else
Exactly.
does.
Someone else does too.
Order.
Exactly.
And they're in your trade binder. Someone else is like, oh, some new tech. I need Aegis of the, or whatever. When everyone was playing Burn. Everyone's playing, whatever that Aegis card was, that white one. That was like a thing that I had like 10 copies in my bulk box. And I went to
the hexproof guy. Yeah.
No, it was an enchantment.
Yeah.
Wait, I'm thinking of the 2-drop guy that gives you hexproof. He's like a 3/1 and gives you hexproof. That's what I'm thinking of. But it's not him.
It's not him. So I'll tell you, I have actually not to take any
Aegis of Honor.
Aegis of Honor. Not familiar with it.
The next time an instant or sorcerer deals damage to you, that spell deals damage to the controller instead.
The 1-drop.
That was a hot card that was just in my bulk rare binder, and then I was at an SCG Open in like Columbus, and everyone's like, "That's the card this weekend." Everyone's sick of getting like fire blasted.
Oh man!
So it's just one of those things. Like, if I had been a player who's like, I think Aegis of Honor is a good card, and bought 4 copies, I'd have felt like an idiot when everyone the whole weekend is like, "Dude, I'll give you $5 for an Aegis of Honor this weekend."
Yeah,
it made $20 a play set. And like got yours for free, and they made $40, and then
God, that's ridiculous, man. There's also a creature that does that.
Snapcast for 2 Aegis or something like that. Like, you'd have felt like an idiot if you only bought enough copies for yourself, and then everybody else was on the same thing, and it's like, oh, I only bought 4 copies, and I need them all for me. Like, that advice works for everybody, even if you're like, I'm not a speculator. Like, if you're into some hot tech, like. Hot tech doesn't stay hot forever. Like, people are going to find out, and they're going to want that stuff. And sometimes all the dealers are like, I brought legacy cards this weekend. I didn't bring a bulk rare from Mirrodin or whatever that Odyssey. I didn't bring a bulk rare from Odyssey.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of true, too, because...
Players are back in Massachusetts. Good luck. Like, no, haven't. So you know who had Aegis of Honor that weekend? Me.
Dude, that's solid. Good pick, man. And the
Good
more
timing.
And the more that you're interested in it,
if you were someone that knew they needed them, why would you only bring 4 copies?
Right. And like the more you look into it too, like if a card interests you and you're like, all right, I need this. I feel like as informed buyers, you're going to go and try to find the best price that you can get it at. So you're doing more research into a card at that point than you probably have ever done on anything you've spec'd, because you need it. Like you're interested in getting it. You know what I mean? And
so you go to Card Kingdom and they have 12 copies, and the card is $4. And you buy 4 copies, then somebody else paid $4 a piece for the next 4 copies, and then the person after that paid $4 a piece for the next copies. And then they raise their buy list price to $6 and their retail price to $11. And somebody like me just buy list them a bunch of $6 copies, and I made money, and then the next person pays $11. If you just bought 12 copies, the price goes to $11, and you could like buy list the copies you just bought from them for more than you paid.
Yeah.
And like all your stuff's free.
Literally right back to them in most occasions. Like it's.
I mean, every card you need, you don't need to buy a ton of, but like, man, if there's 12 copies on a website and you need 4, just buy them all.
Yeah. Right.
And some people are like, well, I mean, it's whatever. You're quick or you're dead, I think.
Yeah, it's really true, man.
If you're buying proactively, just do whatever you want. Just go around. I personally don't buy out sites. I leave copies so that the market doesn't get triggered. Because as soon as a card disappears, everybody raises their prices because everything's done by algorithm. But if I leave copies and just buy out, here's 80% of the copies here, 80% of the copies there. I just leave stuff for other people, and then they don't sell out, and the price doesn't go up.
It's true, man.
I give myself
Yeah, I mean, not everybody's going to be Rudy like you talked about, but there are people out there like that. You know what I mean? And I think that's something that you reasonably, as a Magic player, have to plan on.
But some players are like, that's not, that people think this is a stock market, but like they also do the same stuff.
Right.
You see pro players all the time like, well, in our testing, this card was super nuts and I bought 100 copies. And when a pro player does that, everyone's like, oh, they're smart. But like when someone who's not a pro player does it, they're like, oh, they're tainting the format or whatever. It's really fear of missing out. And people get that weird sinking feeling in the pit of their stomach where that card they could have bought for $4 yesterday is 11.
Right.
And I get that.
Right.
I've experienced that. It doesn't feel good, but like blaming people who are probably just other players like you who like read an article a day before you just seems silly.
No one who ever complains about that bought the card.
Like, I didn't buy 5,000 copies of a card to make it sell out. I bought 100 copies and then 49 other people bought 100 copies each or whatever. Or like
right.
1,000 other people bought 4 copies each.
Yeah.
So like even if I bought 100 copies, which is deeper than I normally go and kind of greedy, even if I did that, I'm still not the jerk because like 4,000 copies went to 1,000 other people buying a play set each. And no one snowflake thinks they're responsible for the avalanche. Everyone's like, oh, we bought 4 copies, you bought 100. But like, it's 1,000 people buying 4 copies that made that card sell out.
Right.
So like, nobody wants to take the blame for like their own behavior.
Right.
And I'm not like justifying finance because like people have already made their mind up about it. I'm just saying like, look, if you don't want to feel that feeling, just double your order.
Yeah.
Because you might get on the next card, but you won on this card. You got free Aegises of Honor. So like, what if you have to pay double for the next card? It's fine. It's a wash. Yeah. Like you're just buying cards. And a lot of people buy cards for a deck they'll never build, and then it sits in their binder, and then I buy it for $1.50 in 2 years. So like nobody talks about that. Nobody talks about how the card was $11, and then I buy they're glad to get $1.50 2 years later because they never built a deck, and then like I'm the one paying $1.50 on a card that to them is worthless. So I'm taking a $1.50 risk on that, and I'm sitting on it, and then all the cards I pay $1.50 for that never go anywhere just eat at my bottom line. I'm just sitting on all that stuff and no one cares about that.
Yeah.
Right. Like
they don't get talked about till they spike. Right.
Wow.
Yeah,
I mean,
but the stores are taking all the risks. So like,
yeah.
And that's fine. That's what the stores do because they win enough buying on margins to like just do enough volume to make money.
For sure, man.
That's how the secondary market works. So like everybody is taking every time you sell a bulk rare for 10 cents, like somebody is taking a risk, kind of.
Right.
If that makes sense.
No,
like,
absolutely.
Every time you sell a card, somebody else is taking a risk. So you don't think about how the fact that like, oh, well, I got out of that $3 card a month before it rotated and then I went to $1. You don't think about that as I made $2, but you did.
Right.
But nobody thinks about that. So like somebody else lost $2 for you to make $2. But they don't remember that. They just remember the fact that they went to go buy Food Chain because they saw that Food Chain Griffin deck that they were never going to build. Make top 8 of an SCG Classic that 97 people played in. And they're like, I'm going to build the Griffin. It's like, no, you're not.
Dude.
It's like, cool, you found one foil Fierce Empath, so like you're almost built. Like, what are you talking about? But then they're like, the speculators all the Food Chains, but they didn't.
Well, speaking of cards that like spike up high and like, when people feel bad that the prices get that high, I had noticed that you guys had started doing a segment in the Brainstorm Brewery called the Sudden Substitute, which is insane. Like I really liked that because Brad and we had talked about this economic concept of substitution some number of podcasts ago, man. Yep. And so I was curious to get your feedback on this, man. I had a solid pick over there.
What it was? It was DJ like following Saffron Olive on Twitter and then just waiting in. So like our my podcast co-host Douglas Johnson, who was a buyer for 95 MTG. He's a former writer for Brainstorm Brewery.
What did you just call him?
Podcast guest emeritus.
Thank you.
not everyone knows the running joke. He's been a guest. He's been a guest for about 150 episodes.
He's not a third host, man. He's a perpetual guest.
So, Peter Pan, Never Gonna Grow Up, lifetime Wonder Boy guest. Douglas Johnson is a buyer for 95.
Yeah.
Former writer for MTG Price and Brainstorm Brewery. He will just wade in and just like, people like the reserve list, no D. The reserve list is making so I can't build a red deck in EDH without Wheel of Fortune. You need Wheel of Fortune to build a red deck. Otherwise, how am I going to draw cards? Except every red card.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Here's an option. Here's an option. Here's an
Right.
option.
Exactly. There's so many of them out there, man.
But like, Wheel of Fortune is expensive because there are 40 copies of Wheel of Fortune, and everybody played them on the sidewalk outside of their school, so the back's all scraped up. And then everybody used their jeans pocket for deck transportation, so they all ended up in washing machines. And then some number of people are like, I'm playing Iron Man Magic, so I'll cast Wheel of Fortune to rip it up.
Oh.
It's I'll tap Black Lotus for 3 mana, rip it up. So like, that's why Wheel of Fortune's expensive, but like, it turns out other wheels are just as good or better.
Oh yeah, man. It's
like,
a really good
concept. You could be mad at the reserve, but like, if Wheel of Fortune is holding you back from making a Xyrus deck, like, you're an idiot.
Right. Dude,
just play a windfall. So like, we were just sick of people complaining about stuff that didn't matter.
Yeah.
It's like, I can't play Magic without Gaius Cradle. It's like, all right, maybe you think that.
Well, and that was probably the first Cradle of Itlimoc was in one of our early episodes where we were talking about how Wizards is dancing this line of reprinting reserved list cards. I want to emphasize the D. That is not a joke.
You don't have to impress me.
It's way too late for that. But we were talking about how they're just brushing up against that. Like, here's something that has the flavor of this reserved list card, and that
but they're never going to print a new card that's going to make the reserved list card go down that much. Just because, like, if it's that good, people will play both. Or there's a collectability aspect to the game.
Exactly.
Yep.
So like, people, Gaius Cradle's never going to go to $1 because they could print snow-covered Gaius Cradle that you can like search with them or whatever.
Yeah,
like,
but still, Gaius Cradle will still be expensive. They'll run both.
Maybe not, but like, they are going to be so conservative with bumping up against the reserve list. They're never going to overshoot it, which is good. That's fine. That's good. So they're going to give us something that's a little bit worse. That's still fine for EDH. Like, in Legacy, a 3-mana spell is very fundamentally different from a 2-mana spell in Legacy, because of course it is.
Right.
3 mana is not the same turn as 2 mana, but in EDH, 8 mana is the same turn as 11 mana, right? Like, none of this matters.
Very true, dude. So I got one for you.
You could print a 3-mana spell that does the same thing as a 2-mana spell, and like, it's fine.
Yeah.
People are like, I can't afford Demonic Tutor, and I play Diabolic Tutor, and it's just like, I'm never Demonic Tutoring turn 2 anyway.
You're like, going down the road that Mike wants.
Yes. You just paid $35 for a Farseek, you idiot. Like, just.
So I've got one for you, Jason.
Wants to talk
and
about.
I'm so glad you went down the road of tutors too. Like, so we had talked about this as a replacement, and I'm really curious to get your thoughts on this, because I don't just think this is a replacement. I think this is a legitimate better card at this point. Like, by better card, I mean, would you rather pay $200 or 50 cents and do the exact same thing for the exact same mana cost on like the exact same turn for the exact same purpose? So hear me out, right? Grim Tutor has been, in Legacy, a pretty big storm staple, right? Like, people are, using that. They use it. It's 3 mana. They go and tutor a card and they put it in their hand. We have recently seen a card printed in the name of Wishclaw Talisman that, for all intents and purposes, does the exact same thing for a better, more splashable mana cost than Grim Tutor. And this thing is only 50 cents, man. Like I had spec'd on this for a while because I noticed like, you know, it's basically a Grim Tutor.
People were talking about it. Yeah.
No kidding. Yeah. I mean, it just feels like that card should be so much more than 50 cents at this point. I was telling our listeners, I was like,
but
there's
like, here's the deal. Like the number of people that have made that come to that conclusion, like it's a lot of people. But you're talking about a non-mythic rare in the post-mythic era in an imprint set that doesn't impact standard.
Yeah.
Like, even if Witch Claw Talisman is $7 in 2 years, like it's gonna be 50 cents right now.
Right. Or it doesn't even impact EDH that much, really. Like, which is again a very big driver.
I mean, if you look, it's like it's not played as much as it could be. So, Witch Claw Talisman isn't functionally the same card, but like at the same time, it kind of is. But like, Grim Tutor isn't what it costs money wise because of how good it is.
Right.
Not 100%.
Yeah, it was printed once in Starter. Like, yeah.
Starter.
Right. That was like 97.
The look on your face when you said Starter was priceless. That might be the screenshot to start this podcast.
Like 97 is when that was printed. Like Starter, I think 97 is when that was printed. Somewhere
Starter
around there.
Was free, and I still didn't have any. Like you could just send a postcard and get. I did that for Portal. They're like, send us a postcard, and you can have some Portal cards. And I was like, I did.
That was my first set of Magic cards, dude. They sent me a Portal deck in the mail randomly, or Portal.
You filled out a postcard.
Yes,
and they sent it to you.
Yes, it was like this Portal booster pack. Basically, I remember Devoted Hero was in this thing. It was so dope. I was like, this guy's cool, man. He's a 1/2.
The thing they were doing with Portal, they're like, don't shuffle the deck because we want the game to play out exactly this way. So there was like a script for like, this player plays Goblin Hero and passes the turn. This player plays whatever, Giant Octopus for full mana. And they're like, don't shuffle the deck, or like you're not going to draw the right stuff. Yeah.
Yes. So they was trying to get people into Magic.
And then 10 years later, like, oh, we could have a computer program show everyone how to do this. Like, Duel of the Planeswalkers is like the best thing they ever did. I tried so hard to teach so many people to play Magic over the years, and I never did a better job in an hour of sitting down with someone and like, you have a college degree, learn this. I never did a better job than like Duel of the Planeswalkers did in 5 minutes.
Oh man,
I was so
that game was sick. Yeah,
so like no one needed Portal anymore. They're like, yeah, we can handle instants, dude. Calm down,
right?
Like,
yeah, they printed sorceries. Like
it says on it, you can only play this during combat. It's like, dude, it's an
right, exactly. They printed counter spells as sorceries back in that day.
Sorceries, like, this is a sorcery you can only play on their turn.
You can only play this in response to someone playing a spell on their turn.
Thank God in 1990 to 1995, I was playing bass and trying to get laid.
When you play bass, you have to try to get laid. If you played lead guitar, you
he's not wrong. He's not wrong, folks. I will not disagree.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that because I play bass too. So
yes. So we're not going to run too long tonight. I want to ask. I'm picking up my product tomorrow. Like I said, I've been playing strictly Necrosar for 4 years.
That's boring.
I'm a humans player in Modern. I'm looking forward to building off of the Jurina deck. I'll probably use the partner commanders. What card should I be thinking about for that deck that I wouldn't otherwise think about?
This will be the Snap This Up segment right here. Jason Alt's official pick.
So are you asking me to like go to EDH Rec, or are you?
Yes, I would like you to do all the work for me.
Top of my head.
Well,
top of your head, man. How do you feel about it?
I wrote an article this month called "The Year They Reprinted Everything" because I was like, when I saw Jurina, I was like, yeah, passive ancestry, shared animosity is going to be good, blah blah blah, and they just reprinted everything. I was like, what if increasing devotion would be good? Oh, that's in the deck, but what about Knight of the White Orchid? Oh, okay, well, what about Alessia? Oh, okay, what about Odric? What Thalia's lieutenant is definitely after necromancer.
Well,
frontline man. They just reprinted everything.
They really
good.
did this year, man. So many reprints.
We haven't even seen the list from Jumpstart yet, but let's stick to this Commander 20 Jurina deck. Is there something that I'm not thinking of that I should be thinking of for that deck?
Angel of Glory's Rise.
Nice. Ordered 8 today, following that concept of not only do I want to buy twice as many as I need, but there's the media promos, and I don't know how they actually look, so I got 4 of those, and I got 4 regular foils.
Bring that up for me. I got to see that, man. That's so
Rise.
solid. Is that the
they
one that...
reprinted Captivating Crew, which blew me out. Like, I'm so deep on those.
Really?
Grand Abolish is good. Oh, you know what? This is a card under $2 that I like. Camball, Console of Allocation.
Oh, yeah. I just picked up 8 of those the other week. That guy's so
I don't know
good.
if it's getting reprinted, but that's a sick card.
Oh, man. So good.
I like Thalia, Guardian of Thraben. Like, I like both Thalias, actually.
You're talking this guy's language. Big humans player over here. You're talking his language now.
But I like both Thalias for that deck, actually. They didn't get reprinted, and Thalia was an M20, or the 25, Masters 25 or whatever, which blew me out because, like, I was real deep on Thalia. I, like, bought in at 7. I was like, who's going to hit 15? And then I got greedy and didn't sell out, so now it's like $4. I like that a lot. Grand Abolisher is good.
I can't believe the price on that card.
I think one of the most underrated cards right now is Sir Conrad the Grim. That goes in a lot of different decks. It goes in a lot of different colors. I like foils of Sir Conrad because, like, they're never going to reprint a foil of that, even if they do reprint the non-foil in some future Commander product. I think this is the only chance to get foil Sir Conrad. And as much as it's like an uncommon right now, also the foil's like not that much money. It's like $2 or something like that.
Wow.
Yeah. So like that's why like this is I think about this stuff a little bit differently type of pick. But like anything with cross format applicability is also good. So anything you would like to play in Modern Humans might be good. Anything that's good in other decks. Like Timna the Weaver is good in this deck, but it's also like $40. But when you think about it, it's like Timna is like the only deck anyone builds in competitive EDH because like they're really boring. It's like we're playing Timna and Thrasios, or there's like 3 other decks they play. So it's sort of like
this card's been spiking.
$50 and everything. But Timna is like a $40 card and a $100 precon. So, like, when you think about it, it's like, well, I could just get a bunch of free cards.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So you pay $100 for a Timna plus $80 worth of stuff. So that's something to think of. I don't hate Recruiter. I don't hate Silverblade.
Imperial Recruiter?
Recruiter the Guard.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yep. Yeah, that's a really good one too.
Imperial Recruiter. Yeah. Well, I mean, at least they did something to it as a relief valve on the price. And I don't know. I play Sarah Ascendant in EDH. Not everybody does that. It's a little cheesy. Be like, oh, I'll turn 1 Baneslayer, go.
Yeah, no big deal.
Hey, I won't ask you to go too deep on this. Last bit of conversation, I think, before we close it out. You actually started this whole call by saying you were readjusting your camera. How have you been playing Magic in quarantine?
So I recently just tweeted, like, I want to play on webcam with people. I did it a little bit. I play with the EDH Rec crew just, like, for their calibration episode that never aired. We think we're going to start doing it with people who are patrons of Brainstorm Brewery. People go to patreon.com/Brainstorm Brewery.
Do it, man. Do it.
Do it up.
For as little as 20 or 25 cents.
5 cents an episode, and it's $1 a month. That's so affordable. You can have access to our Discord, and you can make fun of me directly instead of doing it indirectly on Twitter, which I may or may not see. So like playing a 4-person pod like is not that hard on like Skype or GoToMeeting or something like that. I really encourage people to try it. You get to play with your paper cards, which is good. Like, you don't have to buy a whole EDH deck on Arena, which is bad. I think just human connection is really important at a time like this, which is why I'm doing so much podcasting, because I get to talk to people who aren't 10-month-old or 4-year-old.
Yeah.
Because I gotta be honest, man, my 10-month-old, he's got nothing to contribute.
nothing to contribute to the Magic community. Come on, man, you got to teach him young.
Yeah, Dad. Oh, you said that yesterday. Like, you're an original thought, you idiot.
Come back with new material, or you're off.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Oh, this guy's recycling his material. Yeah. So, so like, it's good to. I'm on Twitter and Facebook a lot right now, just because like I feel like that's how I interacted with a lot of the people I liked before. There are people I like that I podcast with that I consider friends that I've never been in the same room with.
That's cool.
So like, if the internet can do that, like, the internet can make you still feel like part of the community, which is why I like Twitter so much, because Magic Twitter is just sort of like, we are complaining about the same things we would be complaining about sitting next to you at the LG.
Yep.
You know, and we're doing dumb contests, and we're playing pickup games of Commander. I used to see where for a while I write for Cool Stuff Inc. Right, and I would never write Commander. I would always write EDH, and my editor had to go in and change every instance of EDH to Commander, and I just didn't care.
That's what it was originally called, man.
I'm old school, but like. We don't want to get sued by like whoever owns the rights to the movie Highlander or whatever. It's like 8 years old, so like, you've been served. It's like, oh, it's 1996 People Magazine's Sexiest Man Alive, Adrian Paul from the Highlander television show. What are you gonna serving people with papers for saying Highlander? They're the only one. Yeah, it was on the TV show. It wasn't good as the movie,
Jason,
but it was
you're
better
playing
than
both sides.
I like that show, man. Whatever. I have all the DVDs. I don't own a single Highlander movie, but I got all the shows. So you tell me which is better.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's right.
it's much. They're like, we don't want to get sued by the Highlander people. Let's just call it Commander. So,
oh man,
I say Commander now sometimes if I slip up. It's sort of like, if I'm not drinking, I'll remember. Oh, I'm rocking the EDH style, but like, yeah, it's Commander. It's whatever.
Yep.
You mentioned you're super active on Twitter and Facebook.
Try.
So let's do the bit, man. Where can people find you if they want more information from you or your other content, not just Magic, whatever you want to talk about?
What you got coming up?
To be on Twitter at Jason E. Alt. I got a pin post at the top where I talk about the various websites for which include MTG Price and Cool Stuff Inc. Talks about my various podcasts, Brainstorm Brewery and Film Hooligans, which I do with John Dunning from formerly of Tinstry Hooligans. John's another Magic community guy that's like really into movies, so that was a nice pairing for me. I'm occasionally on a podcast called Money Draft, but you know, that's a
hit or miss.
That's a little bit more sporadic. But really what I want people to know is just like the articles I'm running, because really what I'm trying to do is save people money. I'm trying to get people to buy at the right time and sell at the right time. And if you buy at the right time and sell at the right time, you don't have to speculate. You just do what you were going to normally do, but better. And I think people will be less hostile to finance if they realize that we were all engaged in it, winning or not. So you are an MTG financier if you buy or sell Magic cards for your own personal use. So as soon as you get over that, I'm not an MTG financier. Yeah, you are.
Yep. You
You're
play
an
the
MTG
game,
financier
you are.
does it wrong because you're not paying attention. So what if you spend 10 minutes a month just thinking about what your next move is so you do it a little bit better? You'll save so much money and be so much happier if you just think about it 10 minutes a month. And that's all I'm really advocating. Just sell at the right time and buy at the right time.
This is like the self-help novel of MTG right here. Do what you do
like
better.
Tony
This is
Robbins, like,
exactly. This is the name of the episode.
you don't have 10 minutes.
Tim Ferriss is going to do a podcast with the three of us. Do what you do better. Seriously, Jason, this has been awesome.
Yeah.
You're such a good dude.
That's a because that's my brand of MTG Finance. I'm not like, hey, join my Patreon and I'll let you buy boxes. I'm not about that life. It's just sort of like, just do what you do better.
Yeah, you're a hell of a dude, man, and we are both super happy that you joined us on this podcast, man. So thank you very much for that.
Yeah,
well,
I saw your post,
my pleasure.
And I was like, seriously, this dude,
Humble guy.
I've been listening to BSB for quite a while. I really respect what you do. Like I say, in episode 8 of our podcast, I quoted EDH Rack. I try and give you guys shout outs when I hear something that I think that people, the 50 people that listen to us might want to hear. I give credit where credit is due. And when I saw that post,
it's easy to remain humble when you've had absolutely no success in Magic. It's like, you're a humble guy. I was like, yeah, because like no one cares.
Right. I won a tournament once, to be fair.
More than 10,000 Twitter followers, you should definitely be humble. If there's no
the world we live in.
Point in your Twitter follower count, you should be humble because you're nobody.
Oh man, I've had my music YouTube channel for, I don't know, 10 years or something. I've just realized recently, hey, I should try and push for 100 subscribers so I can have a unique page name.
Hell yeah, man.
Hey, I'm Brad O'Brien. I'm at Zeta Base on Twitter. You can find me at That Brad Dude on Facebook. You can find this podcast anywhere you listen to podcasts. So if you are watching this on YouTube, you can find us on your podcast host. If you are listening to this on a podcast host, go and watch the video on YouTube. We have lots of extra content on there now. Mike is doing streaming. He's doing a free-to-play grind to Mythic.
That's right.
Our friend Tech4, Andy Michaud, is doing a Attacking the Meta weekly episode where he's playing really off-brand decks that are trying to attack the meta, which is fun. We've done a couple of product unboxings, which is fun. We're trying to get our camera work down on that.
Hell
Mike,
yeah.
what do you got to go out?
Well, as you may know, I'm Mike Cooley. You can find me at Cooley with 3 O's on Twitter and also on Twitch. Cooley with 3 O's. Tune into the streams, man. Like Brad said, we're doing a po man's grind to get to all of the wild cards that we need to build a tier 1 standard deck. And join us on that adventure, man. Thank you again so much, Jason, for joining us. We definitely appreciate it.
Hang out for a second.
Jason was even jamming out to your music over here. Brad created that, man.
I was thinking about the notes you weren't playing.
As a real bass player would.